Okay, so in section 1.12 we learned how to create a new data connection, and we created our new data connection with a set of objects. Now this is fairly simple at the moment. It has one single table in there. Now quite often your data connections will be a little more complex than that. So what we're actually going to do now in section 1.13 is we're going to add another table to this. Now if I go back to dashboard here and go to the 1.13 tab, this is the table that I'm going to create, and actually it looks very little different. It doesn't look massively different from anything that we've built so far, and part of the power of Pan Intelligence is at this level, when you're creating things, you don't need to worry about data table structure in any way, shape or form. So it's not obvious to us here that there is actually anything going on. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log out and log back in as my admin user. I could log in as admin or day one here, but I'm going to log in as the admin user. And when I'm logged in as the super admin, I'm just going to give my Ken user one more privilege. So again, spanner wrench up to the users, select my Ken user, and there's a little can view chart debugging information. Now you notice it goes red when you give it, because actually we'd warn that this is not something you should really give out to many users, but certainly as you're building data connections and creating things, it's a very useful option to have. And what that will allow me to do now, if I log out and log back in as Ken here, and log back in there, and go to my 1.13 section here. Now, because I've got that option available, when I go into the information, I can go to the debug screen and I can actually see the SQL. So people will pronounce this SQL. It actually means structured query language, and this is the actual code that we're sending to the database to retrieve the data. Now, you don't need to be an expert in SQL to use Pan Intelligence in any way, shape or form, but learning a little bit of SQL will really help us. The most important part here is what's in the from clause, and actually we'll see here we've got two tables. So this is basically instructing the dashboard where to go and get the data from. So we're selecting from customers, and we're also selecting from another table called date dimension, and actually this is the instruction to tell it how to make the join between those tables. And that's exactly what we're going to do now with our new data connection. So I'm going to go back to here, open up the data connection I created in 1.12, and here I've got my customers table sitting within here. Now we're going to recreate the data connection that's in 1.13. Now don't start again, we're just going to change our data connection and add this context on here. The only reason why there's separate data connections here are so that we can demonstrate it slowly in the practicals. But essentially we're going to bring in another table and we're going to create a join between those tables, telling it which are the foreign keys or which are the bits of data that are similar in those tables, so how to join between those tables from a query perspective. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to my data connection here. I'm going to click the little plus, just like we did in section 112. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to find my date dimension table. And I'm going to do exactly what I did before. So click this little button, which will give me all the candidate objects. And actually there's some that I don't care about. So I don't want the date ID in there, but everything else I'm going to have, except for the fact I don't want any of these to be aggregates. So they're all nice objects. And you'll see in here with this date dimension, it allows us to create tables with really common fields that we might want, days ago, months ago, weeks ago, day of month, all of those sorts of things. So it's a really handy thing to have in your data structure anyway. So next I'm going to click generate, and it'll drop the table onto my screen here. I can pick it up with the three little lines, and move it around. And actually what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a join from here to here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to select one of the tables. In this case I'm going to select the customers tables. I'm then going to select joins, and in here it now gives me the join syntax. Click the little plus, Now there's only one potential table to join this to, date dimension. If I had more tables in my structure, it would give me a full list. But in this case, I'm just going to click on date dimension, and I'm going to click into the orange section, and this is where I'm going to pick the objects to join from and to. So in here I should have a created, so date created ID and date ID. Now you'll also notice it tells us the object type. Now it's really important from a DB perspective that the object types are the same, but if your database is structured properly, then that shouldn't be an issue anyway. I'm going to click apply, so it's now put that join syntax in here. I'm not going to worry about the join type. That's something you'll discover on days 2 and days 3 in the training courses, but I'm just going to keep it as what we call an inner join at the moment and save that. And I've now got that little join link between here. And what I can actually do, if I go back to the dashboard now, I should be able to create a day of the month by value annual in exactly the same way. So my data connection here, I've got day of month, and I'm going to select value annual. It's going to create a nice bar chart, but let's change it into a spline chart so it looks similar. So data from 2 tables, and if I save that, I can prove that to myself by going into the information here, and in the information go to the debug, and I'll see that actually it's joined those 2 tables together, and the end user hasn't had to worry about that at all. Now I'm going to show you one slight change as well. So if I go back in and edit the chart that we looked at before, there was actually a little folder with all the created date objects in there. Now that's really easy to go and recreate. And also a top little tip here, I don't have to keep going out of here and going back to the config and back into here. When I'm building data connections, I can just hit the little spanner and jump straight to the back end. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to organize. So click on organize here, and I've got all of my objects that sit within here, and let's pick out the month objects that I want to create. So I'm going to take all of the day name, day of week, all of these objects that have something to do with the actual date. I'm going to go and put into a separate section. So quarter number down there as well. So I've got all of those selected. Over on the right hand side here, I'm going to create a new subfolder, and I'm going to call it created date. I'm going to apply that, and then I'm going to click move, which will move all of those objects that I've got selected under my created date. And if I save that now, when I go back to dashboard, I'll see exactly what I saw before. So I've got all of my created date objects sitting within one folder, just to make it nice and simple. And that helps especially as you start to get more and more objects in your list. Okay, so time for you to have a go. You're going to end up creating this table, but in doing so, you're going to create a structure which looks something like this. Okay, good luck.